Hello everyone, welcome once again from Team CRM Once. Today we would like to bring you a new series of video how to add configurations to CRM online plugins. So why waste time? Sit back, relax, grab your notes and learn something new. Alright, CRM online, we have plugins, you all know. When you go to plugins, uh, you'll see the option of configurations. All this what I talked today in theory, I'll actually walk you through with a sample example as well. So just pay attention. Um, remember, configurations are nothing but if you remember classic .NET applications that you have built or any Java applications, you have a file called web config file or app config file where you store all the information that you want to access your application, but make sure that it is secure somewhere. That's where configuration comes into place. CRM also has its own configuration file, but when you come to using custom code, there comes a situation where you have to pass on secure information or some standard information that you want your plugin to read and then execute based on that. So that's what this plugin configuration will help us. As you're looking at this slide, it talks about what are two different configurations it supports: unsecure and secure. And you can see here, unsecure, if we put anything in the unsecure configuration, that can be readable by any CRM user. When I say readable by any CRM user, it's not like that they'll go to CRM and then they'll be able to view this. But if anybody who has access to plugin registration tool can open and see the configuration, that's physically looking at the configuration. But let's say your plugin is executing in some user's context outside who doesn't have an admin permission, and your plugin needed those parameters to be read, then you can put those in the unsecure configuration and read them. Um, examples like let's say you wanted to pass always and you want to replace the text there depending on whether it is in India or in UK or somewhere, then you can pass that. So things like that, there are too many examples that you can think of. And when you can use secure configuration is you want your plugin to execute in an admin mode, only the parameters that you have that needs to be read by the CRM admin. Um, then only you'll go for secure configuration. Things like usernames, passwords, any like payment gateway settings, anything like URLs, which are only authenticated ones, and you don't want to expose it outside your network, things like that. Okay, there are a couple things that you have to watch out for when you're using unsecure configurations. Um, the configuration information will go between environments. That means when you make your solution and move it to another environment, uh, whatever you have added in the unsecure configuration will go along, so you don't have to make that change again, right? And another thing you have to make in mind when you're using these configurations, which one to choose. um, when your plugin has to run in an Outlook offline mode and do its activity, then go for unsecure configuration, because if you go for secure, then you won't be able to read the configuration information, right? So that's the two type of settings that you can use, and pass on parameters to your custom plugins. So summary: use the secure configuration when a setting is sensitive, so you don't want it to be read by a CRM non-admin user, and also you don't want that setting to be moved between the environments. So these are the two criterias. Okay, so here are a few examples. Web service credentials, use secure configuration. Website URLs, if they differ from environment to environment, go for secure configuration. any log settings that you want to move, so anything that you're tracking, and keeps it that way. Use secure. Simple templates like strings, like I said, you can use this. Any constants like maximum number of tries, or if you say number of days to follow up. There are some samples that I'm putting it here. Okay, so hope this gives you a better understanding when to go for secure and unsecure configuration. Here is just a snippet how the sample configuration. CRM, when you're adding the configuration, it has to be an XML file, and it should start with a opening tag settings and end with a closing tag settings. So it's a standard XML structure, and within the settings you can have a new node for each of the setting, and a value for it, the name and value key pair. So here in this sample that I'm going to show later on in the code as well, that's how the configuration will be set. So key thing, it has to be in XML format, starting with a parent node of settings with a closing node for that, and then within that settings you'll add every new parameter as a new node, starting with setting and closing tags obviously, and name and value. Okay, let's go to a sample. Alright, here is my Visual Studio, and we'll keep increasing this one as we talk through. So today's class, plugin configuration sample, so that's my class name. So let's go to plugin registration tool. I have built my assembly CRM1's plugin samples, and the plugin that we want to use today to demonstrate how to use plugin configuration is plugin configuration sample. As you see, I have a step added here, and this is firing on an update of account, and I'm trying to read few settings. Like I said, just for demonstration purpose, I will use unsecure configuration. I'm just putting username, password. Obviously, you all know this should not be in unsecure, but just for demo. And then I have URLs in here. Like I said, if these don't change, you can add here. If they do change, move it to secure. And then another setting, number of records. Okay, this is my XML file, and my setting. And if I have done everything correct from a coding perspective, I should be able to read all these. Okay, so now let's go back. And remember the class that I explained you guys on how to debug plugins, in order to make sure that your settings are correct. Anything that you do with your code, you'll be using debugging. So as I've mentioned, my plugin fires on an update of account, so I'm navigating to accounts. Alright, so our plugin is an update of the account. I have an account open. Let me go back to plugin registration tool. And what I'll do is I'll start profiling on this, get the error file, and then debug it. Okay, I have profiler on this step, so I'll go back to, and then let's make a simple update. Currently my relationship type is customer. I'll just move it to competitor. I'll save this. Okay, it just downloaded in my code samples. Remember in the class I did mention that make sure you just put your error details where you want to be in your assembly folder. That is where I'm putting this. Now what I'll do, I'll go back to plugin registration tool, and then I'll try to set the debugger for this. So the profile, I'm already in my location. As you can see in CRM1 samples, my bin debug, this is the profile that we just saved, and the assembly location is also right in the same folder, so it will point to that. This is where it becomes easier when you put your error file and assembly in the same location. You don't have to navigate back and forth. I just went back, so I can show you that this is where exactly my assembly and the error file is. So I'll pick the assembly. So I picked the right one, and I ran the profiler on the right plugin, so it picked And remember I said don't hit start execution, because I still have to go and attach the process from Visual Studio. So let me do that. Okay, I'm on Visual Studio, and this is 2015 version, guys. So the attach process will be under debug options. If you're using 2012, it will be under tools. So I'll go to debug, attach to process, and like I've mentioned, and I can see plugin registration tool, the exe. I'll just attach to that. Okay, so it is all attached, and as you can see I have put a lot of breakpoints, just to make sure all my information is coming correctly. um, then I'll explain you the entire code. Let's just take this walkthrough and verify the results first, then I'll explain you how the code is set up. Okay, and then I'll hit start execution. Okay, there it is. It hit my breakpoint. That means it started its execution. Okay, see, it hit my breakpoint, and if I hover over, you'll see the config information that I'm reading. This is reading currently from UnSecure. So you'll see the config information. Let's step in. Um, I have some helper class files, right? All the methods that you use, which will be generic, I'll use a helper file. There I have actually created some methods to read from the configuration, string values, integer values, boolean values, all type of attributes that you want to read for each one. I'll just read it. Okay, so it took me to the config helper file. What it is doing is it is taking a XML document as a parameter, and then it is taking the from that XML document which node that I want to extract the value, right? So that's this one, right? And then I'll just go in. There is another method here, get value node, because I just want to use this for every other methods, right? As a common parameter. So what this takes is it will go to that specific node, and then returns you the string value. So if you step in there, so this is that method, right? It reads this XML, and then if the node has a value in it, then it tries to read that node value and return. If not, it returns an empty string. So if you see now in username, I have whatever I have given on the config information, test user. So password, I just stepped into that same thing. So now whatever the information I had, I have read all that from config information. Then I can use it anywhere, pass it in my code as a parameter to other functions, and then use it where required. In this sample, what I'm doing is I'm just making sure that all these values exist before I execute anything in the code, right? So that is this condition. If username not empty, password is not empty, then user URL, account URL, every parameter that I have, I just want to make sure that it has a value in it. If it does, then I just want to make sure that so I just want to show you another way how you can actually use the plugin trace. This is CRM's its own way of doing debugging without even hitting your code. As you can see, since I added a trace line, CRM went in and it created a trace log for me. Yeah, if I open the trace log, see here in the message block, I'm seeing the trace line that I added. Uh, if you want to do debugging, this is just, you can add every on your every code line before and after a trace line, and just do your code walk. I know I went off a little bit, but this is important, and it helps a lot. Okay, so here is the code file I have. Now let's talk about it a little bit. Okay, let me make this a little clean. I'll delete all breakpoints for you so it looks better. Okay, um, first, as you can see, I just created private variables at a class level. Um, the way CRM reads the configuration is from the constructor of the class, right? So my class name is plugin configuration sample. So I have a constructor, plugin configuration sample constructor, right? And it takes in the parameter of the config string, and like I said, it is the config information, so it read it. All I'm doing in this code is I'm just checking that this configuration string actually has some value in it, right? So that's the first check I'm doing. Next, what I'm doing, I'm just assigning that value to the read-only variable that I created, uh, because that's where I want to store this, so that if in case I want to pass it in my code somewhere, use it again, I have it. And it's an XML document, so I'm loading it into an XML document, and I'm trying to parse through each node, retrieve its value, and store it into a variable separately, right? So let's step into this and see. Okay, get config data string. I talked about this. This is just a helper method I created. It is reading the string file that I'm passing and what node I have to strip. That's all, right? And I also told you guys that I have other helper methods. This is for integer. Same thing. Send your configuration and the label that you want to parse, and this will return you an integer value, right? And there are a few other, you can look into the code. So next step, what it is doing, once it gets the XML file and which label that we want to read the value from, which is the node label, I just have another method. This is used across board, get value node. So it is selecting a single node, uh, and the key is whatever we are passing. So if I go back here, uh, in this case username is the key that it will look for, and then it will return what is the value for that key. That's all. Okay, if it doesn't have a value, it will return an empty string. Okay, that's how CRM works. You have your configuration setting as an XML file, and then in your class file you'll add a constructor, and the constructor will expect the parameter, which is the configuration information, and then since it's an XML file, you just have to parse the XML, each node of the XML, to get whatever values you want. Okay, the next thing what I did, now that I have retrieved the value, stored it in my class level variable, I can just pass it anywhere and to the underlying methods and then use it there. In this sample, all I did is I just used it to verify that all the config information exists, so that I can go ahead and start my plugin executed. Okay, um, so that's how the code setup is. First failure would be, let's say, if your XML file, um, you didn't put it in the right structure, right? Each XML has its structure. So if your plugin registration tool in the config information, let's say you broke the XML structure, let's see what will happen at that point. So each XML node will have its own closing tag. So what I'm doing is, for the username, I removed the closing tag, right? And then I just try to update the step. Okay, so I have a wrong configuration here. Now if I go back to CRM, okay, I will try to update the account. Since the configuration information is wrong, this is what it happens. That means the plugin doesn't even start its execution, and it's probably that your configuration settings are wrong. This thing will bite you back every single time. So do remember, check your configuration file, proper XML structure always. Now let's go back, correct that. Did the step. Now come back to CRM, try to save the record. Now come back to CRM, try to save the record. And done. Your record is saved. So watch out for that XML. Make sure the little tag that you miss is always there. That's about it. Thank you. Until next time. Bye now.